Hi, I'm Lydia Blanco, Digital and Events Editor with Black Enterprise, and today I have the extreme pleasure of speaking with a phenomenal woman, someone who is doing incredible work in this country as a scientist and leading the new wave in science. Her name is Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, and you've probably heard about her because her name has been high in Google searches over the last few weeks. And now at Black Enterprise, we have the extreme opportunity and pleasure of speaking with Dr. Corbett. Dr. Corbett, welcome.
Thank you. This is a pleasure.
This is extremely exciting to be able to sit down and have this conversation. Dr. Kizzmekia, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us here at Black Enterprise.
Of course. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so Dr. Corbett, you are the senior researcher and lead, the scientific lead at the NIH. Please tell us more about your role and what you are doing.
Yeah, so I'm a research fellow, actually a senior research fellow at the National Institutes of Health in a center called the Vaccine Research Center. So our overarching goals in the Vaccine Research Center are to essentially organize somewhat like a biotech, but under the federal government in a way that we have a product portfolio that we try to move into phase 1 clinical trials and beyond. We study various viruses at the Vaccine Research Center, HIV, Ebola, we studied Zika virus, and then my particular team, for which I'm the scientific lead, has been studying coronaviruses for the last about 6 years. And so what I do is essentially organize a team of people and in so many ways manage a team of people and the science behind our vaccine product portfolio with hopes of moving them into phase 1 clinical trial, understanding from a preclinical standpoint the types of immune responses that we would like to elicit that would give us a good protective immunity against coronaviruses. And then also a large effort from the team is really basic virology and really understanding how the virus works with the human immune system.
That is incredible. Oh my goodness, you are doing very important work. And I am so grateful that in this conversation, we're going to get to know you, the woman behind the science. So in your own words, who is Dr. Corbett?
Yeah, I've been getting this a lot. And I think about a quote that someone shared with me a while ago that said, if you should be able to describe yourself, but not in regards to what you do for other people. So
That's
if
good.
I were to say mom, which I'm not, or sister, or scientist to be real, because my role as a scientist is for the people and for the world. I am Christian, I'm Black, I am Southern, although I've been in Maryland for this time around for about 6 years. I'm an empath. I'm feisty, sassy, fashionable. That's kind of how I describe myself. And I would say that my role as a scientist is really about my passion and purpose for the world and for giving back to the world.
I like that a lot. I think sometimes we think about our professions as our being. And it's incredible to know that someone, of your esteem with your caliber has been able to differentiate the two. I think it's important for people who tune in to see that and to know that they can too identify as themselves, right? Not just as a professional who's doing great things, especially when they're changing the world like you are.
I think absolutely. I think particularly that it helps with the stress of your profession, right? If you can unwind and be true to who you are, it helps to reckon with all of the things, particularly right now for me. I mean, I'm responding, or my team is responding to the world's most devastating global pandemic in recent history in the last 100 years. And so there's something to be said about knowing who you are. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I use this example because it is exactly who I am. Right before I realized we were going to go into lockdown, I went and got my weave. I was like, oh, I'm about to be at home for about, indefinite time. So
Right.
let me get myself together. And that's just kind of who I am, right?
Right.
When I'm in the lab early in the morning, my lab mates joke about it. I always say, like, I know when like 7 o'clock because I hear like turn that music. I'm listening to like Jeezy,
Okay.
I'm true who I am, but I understand that there is a level of professionalism that is attached to essentially what is my newfound status as a scientific lead of this coronavirus vaccine. And, I'm not the face of, the NIH response. I mean, I have bosses and they have bosses and they have bosses. And those people are, particularly Dr. Tony Fauci is a world-renowned infectious disease expert. My boss is nicknamed the vaccinator because he, has a claim to a vaccine portfolio that's vast. He's also a physician who has been working with respiratory viruses all of his life. And, even though I'm not necessarily quote unquote the face of the response, and nor I don't even think I would even want that title right now. But I do owe it to, my job and the American people, right? I mean, I'm serving this country to carry myself in a certain way, but I'm still gonna listen to Jeezy.
That's right. Look, it warms my heart to know that someone on the front line also has a love for trap music. It's important.
Absolutely. It is so important.
Where did your passion from science come from?
From being exposed very early on in my life. So my parents were, and I thank them for this, even though back then it was annoying. They were insistent that if I had a job during my summers in high school, that I did something that was educational and beneficial towards my scholarship later. I think it was kind of clear that I was what would be considered book smart, math, science. I loved them from the classroom perspective. And so I joined in the summers of my 10th grade, I think, yes, and my 11th grade year, a laboratory at the University of North Carolina. So I worked in a chemistry lab, and I was really kind of in the middle of a laboratory with this world-renowned organic chemist. His name is James Morgan, and he paired me with a Black grad student.
Wow.
Albert Russell, he's now, I think, the dean or something or the other at Tuskegee University, in their chemistry department. And beyond the love for science and the scientific process that I learned in that moment, what I learned mostly is that being him was possible. And so I guess my passion was driven around how important science was and how fun it was to go do that kind of work in the summer, but also around some familiarity,
right,
and in that space. And to be frank, I mean, I come from a very small town. If you were smart in science and you wanted to connect science with healthcare, it was kind of the road or the pathway forward would be go and to be a medical doctor. So I didn't even know that this thing called a PhD even really existed, or at least I didn't know what it meant. And so to have someone kind of going through the graduate school process and who was a familiar face, he was a Black man from Alabama, really kind of helped me, I think, in that way.
I love that you said in seeing him, you knew that you could be him. Mentorship and exposure is so important. Was this young man a mentor to you as well, or did you have other mentors who influenced you as you pursued science?
I have had a remarkable set of mentors. I mean, I have been very lucky in that way, because I'm all too familiar, with the horror stories that are attached to people's mentorships and people's mentor inadequacies, so to speak. But I mean, since that moment with Dr. Morgan at UNC and Dr. Russell, who was then a graduate student at UNC, all the way through now, where my mentor is Dr. Barney Graham at the NIH. He's what's called a principal investigator. So he is my direct supervisor. And, you know, even my grad school mentor, Dr. Aravinda Da Silva, everybody kind of, one thing that is really important, I think, and I preach it from the mountaintops quite a bit, is that all of my mentors knew me personally in a way that, like, there was a science, and then I made sure that I was real about who I was and where I came from. And so I guess in the bad world of science and the competition and all types of mess, essentially, having a person of authority that you have breathing room with has been important. And so, you know, there are mentors, there are advocates. I think I've along the way kind of just picked up people.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm never afraid to, like, tell someone that, like, you know, I see you are over here doing this thing that's really exciting. Like, could you mentor me in that? And, you know, being very direct and upfront about my needs. And I mean, I tell my students, or what at the NIH would be called postdocs. So these are recently graduated undergrads. And I tell them, you know, as soon as possible, get what's called a career committee. So it's like a panel of people who you see yourself being one day. And every so often, even if it's just once a year, asking them, am I on the right path to be you? Have them answer.
That is good.
Yeah. You know, and that has been really helpful for me, particularly recently. You know, and sometimes it may not be what you want to hear, but it's good to have like a solid group of people that you trust in that way.
You know, being able to show up as yourself, it takes time, right? But it's incredible to hear you say that you show up as yourself. I do not know what it is like to be a Black woman in science. And I would love to know what your experience has been as you navigate the lab, you know, what some of us would call the corporate ladder, and, you know, showing up as yourself. How do you do so gracefully?
You know, so first of all, myself is just, in general, I'm a dynamic person. And I like to say that I can go from the trap house to the White House in smooth transition, and I have. So you know, so I do have like a dynamic personality, I like to think. I feel like I communicate well across different communities. I feel like in different stances. So I speak to scientists in, you know, the way that I speak to scientists, and then I'm able to speak to the layperson the way that I speak to the you know, general population. And also, you know, what is very helpful. This is gonna sound like, who she thinks she is, but you just, at some point, you just gotta say, I don't care what they think, and just show up. And let your work speak for you, right? So don't it's exhausting to be fake, and so I would say show up and let your work speak for you, and people can get with it, or you can get gone, and that's just goodness. It just has to be, and you know, like, changing the faces at the table and really having these types of conversations around inclusion, and really what is essentially cultural sensitivity, right? Because if I say something in, like, African American vernacular, then it doesn't change the fact that the data is the data. Like, this is still the graph. The data points are here. Okay. If I say, and so I think that a lot of kind of as we progress and as generations change, I think it'll get easier for everybody, and not just Black women, not just Black people. I think it'll get easier for everyone,
right?
Because I'm sure the bosses are showing up to work with some level of a face on at some point. And so I think, it'll just get easier.
That's really good. I like that a lot. A lot of us think that we have to code switch and so many other things to assimilate, right? But like you said, cultural sensitivity as well as cultural competence is so important, in addition to showing up as who you are. What has it been like navigating the lab, though, as a Black woman? Have you experienced any challenges? What has your experience been?
I would say mostly because I have interacted with mentors and direct supervisors that are frankly just they don't discriminate, and they've been understanding, and all of these things. I think I've had, admittedly, probably a different path and a little ease in the laboratory. But there are some things, there are microaggressions, of course, and always. I don't think that's just in the laboratory. But I generally, because I come from a big family, so I tend to gravitate to environments that feel like home, kind of like siblings, and maybe one day you're like bickering, and then the next day you're like best friends. And so, I mean, the labs, particularly my graduate school lab and the lab that I am now, they feel like family to me. And I think that so maybe I may have be a little bit blinded to what the outside world thinks of me. But I mean, there are some things that I continue to see. Sometimes I'm a little bit dismissed, and my views have to go through my boss, who happens to be a white man. Or people will just blatantly they'll ask him to ask me something, and then he'll say, well, Kizzmekia is a scientific lead on the coronavirus team, and then they'll reply back to just through him, and it's like, he just introduced you to me, here, you just ask me for what you want. Or people will, as other places may recruit me, or employment opportunities come through, they will fact check through him.
Wow.
Well, Kizzmekia said she did this, and did she really do that? It's like at some point, do I always why can't all the bosses just get around a table one good time and just decide I'm all right. I'm good. Okay. So I do see those kinds of things, but at the end of the day, I think that my work has kind of proved itself. And I'll roll with the punches as they come.
I am blown away by you. It is incredible that you are so authentic, and that you are playing such an instrumental role in our society today. People are calling on you, and to know that, people feel like you need to prove yourself. I have to take a deep breath, right? But you are doing the work, and it speaks for itself. It most definitely does. You eloquently said that you've had people, along your side as you navigate the lab. How important has sponsorship been for you in your role?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so a mentor is a person that kind of guides you, and then a sponsor is a person that speaks for you. And sometimes they overlap, right? And then sometimes, and quite frankly, I think they should be two different people, because sometimes mentors are often really personally invested in your success so much that they don't see what the outside sees. Sponsorship is so important. Having people who have your back, who speak frankly about you to other people, but then also to you, right? Like,
Right.
you want people to like, so whenever people, like students or something, will ask me for a recommendation, the way that they ask, I always tell them, remember to ask people, would you be willing to write a positive recommendation? Right? Because then you're asking them, how do you feel about
Right.
me? Before you go tell the world. And I think that my sponsorship has come, a lot from my college, my undergrad scholarship program, the Meyerhoff Scholarship Program. Dr. Rabowski has been instrumental in speaking my name loud and clear all over everywhere. And I've had sponsorship come from my high school mentor. With my current mentor, my current boss, he I think sponsors me, and to the extent that he can. I mean, he's my mentor, so he has to be a little bit more critical of my work because it's attached to him. But yeah, sponsorship is, I think, very important and early on. And also, as we speak about mentorship and sponsorship, I want people to remember that I always call things portfolios, because I'm always thinking about like products. But like your portfolio of mentorship and sponsorship should change as you grow. Like, who once could speak on your abilities in this direction may not be able to speak on your abilities in this direction. For example, right now, my life has my day-to-day has changed drastically in the last couple of months since the pandemic began. So who could speak on, yes, Kizzmekia, she leads a team, she understands viral immunology. Who could speak on that versus who can now speak on, Kizzmekia is expeditious in the way that she is responding, her, all of these things, right? Communicating with different organizations and blah, 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 might be different. And so you have to be able to like sidestep in one direction or the other and pivot your mentorship and sponsorship.
That is really good information. I think when we think about mentorship and sponsorship, we think it's something that is constant and looks the same the entire journey. But the fact that you said that, I think, is going to be a wake-up call for a lot of people who have had people advocating for them who may not be as effective because, that relationship can no longer serve them the way it once did. Speaking of relationships, tribe is so important. Oh my goodness. I can only imagine, right, who is in your tribe. But I want you to tell us, how have you been able to rely on your tribe, and who are some of those women and men who keep you, going and help you to push forward?
My tribe, I'm not in a relationship now. Hey, no, I'm just kidding. When I've had a relationship, I've had guys tell me like it's almost as if like you date your friends. Not in that way, but I really feel like my friends and we love, like, really love on each other. And so my close friends and I check in on each other, particularly in this time. I mean, I have like a best friend who's a nurse in Miami, which is a hot spot for the United States epidemiology for the coronavirus right now. Checking in on her. I mean, I've had wine bottles delivered to my front door during this time. I have had cards, and people have sent their kids like saying like good luck, and I mean, people telling me that they're praying for me. My tribe comes through. Okay, I almost feel like I should get all of them together and like write a book on how to like support each other. And part of that just comes from nobody being jealous of the other person's success. Part of that is everybody owning their place in your life and kind of understanding what their like role in your life is. And so everybody just like, in so many ways, like stays in their lane. Like, so this person is like the person I lean on for this, and that they can lean on me for that, kind of thing. And, we talk about what a Black woman to Black woman relationship is like a lot. But I also have male friends who are like brothers to me,
Right.
who actually, to be somewhat honest, I think have been less quote unquote panicky about this situation. So have been able to lift me up a little bit more right now in the middle of this pandemic, while I have like my female friends are like, I'm homeschooling my kids, I still got to work, go to the grocery store, get cases of toilet paper, like panicking. And then my guy friends are like, well, I mean, I'm gonna eat some noodles, but you good? Like, how you know? Like,
Yeah, there's a difference.
yeah. So I think that like there's a difference, and I think both of those types of relationships without gender boundaries are essential to keeping one's like level-headed and sane.
Yeah. That's really good. Try building your community, checking in with people, making sure that you are well during this time is so key. You're leading the charge, right? But you're also a human who is living through this moment with us. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I just want to take it back a little bit to the lab, right? Not in deep details, but I have to ask, because you've been called, on by people in high places, President Trump being one of those people. I have to ask, how is your research shaping the world?
I would have never thought that I would be like in this moment right now. I mean, I wake up sometimes and I'm like, are we living in a like an alternate like universe? Like, what is
Right.
really going on? Like, God is shaking the table. Like, that's what's happening.
Right.
The research that we're doing is what we have essentially planned to do. I kind of have to say that with some level of kind of like, because what this is a demonstration, this vaccine response is a demonstration for readiness, for pandemic preparedness. So what happened with this novel coronavirus is not news, right? Zoonotic transmission of viruses, influenza, avian influenza was an example. HIV honestly is an example of zoonotic transmission. And previous coronaviruses as well. So it's not new that this is something that is imminent, right? And so our team, under the direction of Dr. Barney Graham, has been kind of, in so many ways, planning for this moment. And what is happening right now is the vaccine antigen that we designed with our collaborators at the University of Texas, Austin, Jason McClellan group, is being deployed into phase 1 clinical trial under Moderna, which is a biotech company. And that phase 1 trial started 66 days after the viral sequence was released, which is, to my knowledge, the world record. For this. Usually vaccine development and that to that end, takes a year or two, right? We were able to deploy a sequence to an industry partner, have that industry partner manufacture clinical trial grade material, have the FDA approve what's called an investigational new drug product review, and then start a clinical trial on the opposite coast of the United States, which is in Seattle. Actually, today we are announcing our second site in Atlanta, Georgia. But we were able to do all of that in 66 days. And part of the reason is because we planned. And so I think what echoes and should echo across the world is, number one, this ain't going to be the last time. Okay. Where there will be other viruses that jump into humans, we need to understand how we can be even better prepared. People have been bragging, 66 days, that's a world record. I'm upset because it probably could have been 30 had we taken some of our MERS mRNA constructs all the way through phase 1 already and really understood their safety already. We probably would have had expeditious rights to go into a phase 2 trial already. And so I think that there is always room for improvement. I'm hoping that what our team and our collaborators kind of together are doing is setting a standard for pandemic preparedness. And I'm hoping that what echoes to people with the pocketbooks is that all of this happened because I was afforded the opportunity under Dr. Graham's funding mechanism in his laboratory to have a team that has been studying coronavirus vaccines and designing coronavirus vaccines for the last 5 years, right? And if we had to see the sequence and do everything that we did over the last 5 years, we would be probably receiving protein right now, like from animal studies, not even humans, right? Like, so there's something to be said about planning.
Yeah. My goodness. Planning.
Stay ready, basically. Just stay ready.
Stay ready, right? As people are stocking up and, trying to stay ready, right? You are leading a team of scientists on what is groundbreaking research. What has that, process been like for you?
It's actually been a very welcome learning experience. And, it's been haste. I'm losing some sleep. Today was like the first day I put on like makeup and a real shirt and like
well, thank you.
I mean, obviously when I was doing the like White House press conference, I did too, but there's just it's a learning experience. I will say that I'm being introduced to various facets of vaccine development where I was once just understanding the science and doing the preclinical work. Now I'm connected to people who are, these array of physicians who understand the human immunogenicity side, the FDA and tech companies, and all of this has been a very intricate network and a learning experience for me. I understand that I'm frankly in a very blessed position to be able to respond to this pandemic in the way that I am, with some level of purpose and passion. And I mean, to be completely frank, I was talking to my boss about this. I was like, how many of these pandemics have you responded to in your lifetime? Because he's done Zika, Ebola, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I think it's about 6. And I was like, I think that I'm gonna tap out at 3. Like, whatever the universe has for me, if the universe gives me 3 pandemics and 3 coronavirus pandemics back to back, I'm out. It's exhausting, right?
Well, hopefully you have a mentee right behind you, because we always need Black women at the forefront.
Yeah, no, it's a learning experience, but it's exhausting. I think I'm kind of just set to power through for the next, year and a half, until, even if it's not our vaccine, and so somebody is vaccinating people in a general population. It's important, because I know y'all don't want to be home again next flu season, sitting in the house on stay-at-home orders. Right. So we just have work to do, and that's what we're gonna do.
As you do the work, how are you practicing self-preservation?
So I have a therapist, and I have probably this. I don't even know what my bill's gonna look like, but I mean, it'll be a couple mortgage payments, I'm sure. I mean, I talk to her about every other day for 30 minutes or so. And she knows me, and we have a relationship, and upping the ante on therapy was extremely important to me. I actually have, I get really anxious about things, and I'm very particular about the way that I like things. So now that I'm not just organizing a little small team around our little, I shouldn't say little, around our experiments and like our vaccine designs and stuff like that, now I'm in this huge network. Everything's not going to be done the way that I expect, and trying to understand that sometimes you got to let go of some control. And
right.
So therapy, wine, remembering to, and this doesn't just for me, but like everybody who's just at home on these teleconferences all day, sitting down, remembering to get up and go outside. Just because you have to practice social isolation doesn't mean you can't take a walk or jog or whatever. My friends have been, I mean, I can't even describe it. Like, people are checking in, providing like sounding boards for my frustrations and, tissue for my tears kind of thing. And prayer, I think. Shout out to Beyonce. I remember she had this documentary and she said, people ask me how I got here and I tell them I had a praying grandmother, and that's just it. Like, I know every single night Shirley and Margaret get on their knees and they ask God to protect me and to guide me. And that's as much self-care as you really can need. Like, give it to God and then it'll just, rain on down. But and I'm having my glass of wine at night or two. I won't tell you how many I started. I don't have to tell you how many bottles of wine. I have a wine fridge. I won't tell you how many bottles of wine I started with at the beginning of social isolation versus what I have now. It's time to re-up, basically.
Okay. Look, this is a judgment-free zone.
So yeah, that's just that's how the self-care goes with me. I am a therapy advocate. Like, I mean, I tweeted this. I said, I hope that somewhere in this stimulus package, somebody's saying, everybody in America gets free therapy, because we are going through.
Yes.
If you step outside of the situation, waking up to news of now it's about, I think probably by the end of the day, it'll be 100,000 cases in the US. People are having to watch their elderly grandmothers, aunts and uncles be in the ICU, friends even. I mean, the disease in the middle-aged population, it might not be as critical and morbid as the older people, but people are still ending up in the ICU on ventilators. So watch your friends go through that. You still paying your bills. You still showing up to every meeting on teleconference while your kids are in the next room getting on your nerve. Right. We are going to need to hug it out, okay, at the end of this. And I would say that the base of how we see society is most certainly going to change over the next, couple of weeks. And I think that one of the things that I'm hopeful that comes out of it is just a little bit more empathy overall.
That is so true. Our outlooks on life, they have to change. This moment of stillness, it's all intentional, A lot of people have their conspiracy theories and they're like, but at the end of the day, I think America could use a break, some time to sit down and think about some things.
I said the same thing about the kids. When I saw the amount of schoolwork that my niece was sent home with, I was like, they can't just give the kids a break. Like, we're all tired, okay? My grandma is tired, and my 5-year-old niece is tired. Everybody is tired, and everybody just needs a break.
Right? They're calling it corona fatigue.
Yeah, and my good friend, who is really into viral evolution, he has a PhD, got it at UNC at the same time as me. He said something really that I could highlight, that he said on the phone with me when we were talking. He was like, how I view this pandemic is the virus is just picking up on holes in our social structure. He was like, and I know that viruses don't have brains, but they can at least pick up on infrastructure that wasn't built with brains. So, ravishing through these large cities that are overpopulated without the hospitals to really withstand that population. Science and technology has gratefully and fortunately allowed us to keep our grandmothers alive for longer. But who's to say that their quality of health is better? And just little different little things that I think we're all going to have to just step back and take a really hard look at. Even the way that the communication around this pandemic is, right?
Right.
The last pandemic was in 1918 or something like that. But communication has changed. Yes. we're holding press conferences on CNN, but like there are lots of communities that don't tune into CNN.
Exactly.
Right. So just overall, we're going to have to just take a big look at ourselves. I mean, I personally am taking a look at my team. Like I said before, I'm like, well, we was ready, but we wasn't as ready as we could have been. So now it's time to really think about getting things into phase 1 at risk before the pandemic starts. You know, it's really time to think about putting some new constructs into the vaccine portfolio, moving towards more universal vaccine concepts so that we can immunize people maybe once or twice, and you can cover the whole family of coronaviruses shall one pop up. Or, you know, kind of thinking like forethought and changing the way that we think, right? I think everybody's gonna have to do that.
My goodness, Dr. Corbett, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, leave it a Black woman, right? As they say. Okay, what scientific developments are you most proud of, or just what are you most proud of in your journey as a woman in science or as a woman?
You know, so first of all, I have to just like give a little bit of a shout out, actually a big one, to my boss, because like people are seeing my face. I think I've gone viral in several arenas, you know, and I think it's just the simple fact is because I look different, right? And also the fact is that I deserve it because like this is something that we've been thinking about, and I do lead the team and all these things, right? But Dr. Barney Graham has been extremely instrumental in this entire process. His forethought to allow me to work with a team on a virus that essentially nobody cared about because we knew that it would be a potential pandemic threat. So I kind of have to like give him a shout out in that way, because he is amazing and probably one of the smartest people that I know, particularly around just the future of science and where we should take vaccinology. And then your question was, I forget, but I just had a shout out real quick.
You know, I think that's important though, right? Before I remind you of my question, I think that it is important that you know, give people their proper credit. I love that the world is getting to know you, but it is important, you know, to give people, you know, their shine as well. So thank you so much for being an example of doing so. That's also important. I think sometimes we get to a certain point in our lives and careers and people assume that we've done it on our own and no one gets far by themselves. So my hat is off to you. My question is, what are you most proud of as, you know, a scientist, as a young woman?
You know, still to this date, and the scientists who are looking at this probably gonna be like, okay, but still to this date, to me, I think my proudest moment with everything that has gone on in the last few months and the last few years and the manuscripts and patents and all that, my proudest moment is getting my PhD, actually. Still, you know, I think one thing that would trump that would be, you know, if I have some intellectual property, some vaccine that I had hands on, brain on, go into general population for general use. You know, that's would be a big moment. Winning a Nobel Prize, obviously.
Hey, I saw it coming.
but no, like to this day, that moment was very important to me just because of, you know, I am the first person in my family to have achieved that. I think, you know, particularly for anyone, graduate school is not easy.
Right.
You're in your mid 20s and you're going through all of these like personal changes on top of trying to like, you know, get a doctor of philosophy and become an expert in one thing. So I am very proud of having achieved that. And it was a proud moment. I think I kind of shared in that because it was a proud moment for my family as well. We filled up like an auditorium at UNC. I probably had like, I don't know, like close to 100 people there that day. But like, yeah, I mean, that's still one of my proudest moments. I think another really proud moment is having like the moment that I'm kind of witnessing right now. Really, I guess it's amazing to be seen in this way, and to be completely frank, to just be heard, to have someone like take your voice at heed. I'm living in a very surreal and proud moment right now. But this is it's the beginning, so we'll see. We're gonna have a few more proud moments, and I'm also always very, very proud of the students or the postbacks who have kind of what I call started from the bottom with me, essentially, when it was just kind of like me and them. I'm always proud when something that they do moves forward, whether it be optimization of a particular assay, or a vaccine design, or whatever. A lot of my proud moments come from my mentorship to other people.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it.
That is so lovely. Mentorship is something that is important to you. I've read that elsewhere, and I can only imagine, the sense of urgency you feel to help bring other people with you. As someone who values bringing, STEM to the helm and young Black and Brown people to the helm with you, tell us more about, your mentorship in the community there in Maryland or in North Carolina, and quite frankly, I guess all over.
Yeah, so I actually my little sister is engineering major at North Carolina A&T, and she has a organization that focuses specifically on mentoring students around STEM. I don't serve as a direct mentor to them, but I just kind of bring that up because like this runs deep for us in general. I serve on career boards for people. I present at career days. I make it an absolute point to speak at every single HBCU that asks me. I don't care. Mid-pandemic, I mean, we were actually vaccinating, or we were getting blood from our preclinical studies, like to see if like the vaccine was working. Like, and I was like at Howard University.
I love it. I love it.
And I mentoring people both in the laboratory and outside of the laboratory, staying connected to organizations that essentially prepare students for STEM careers. And just kind of also sometimes what you do for people can be silent. Like I think for example, like some of the greats that I like take heed to and I watch from afar, they don't understand that they're mentoring me or helping me to like form my idea of what it's like to be Black and in STEM. But it is, and hopefully I'm doing the same thing, kind of indirectly as well. Yeah, so just making sure that my community remains a priority is something that is just it's important to me. I always say like, okay, if I ever get a Nobel Prize at the ball, DaBaby and Jeezy, sign them up right now. like I'm gonna like, I mean, not that I feel like I am like the voice or like the face of like, Black people or anything like that, but because like my community has held me down, like particularly during this time and previous times. as I moved, throughout my career trajectory. So it's important to me to give back in that way. And it's also important to me to kind of the way that I was brought into science to kind of reroute that and kind of make sure that the cycle continues.
Yes.
Because I know that had someone not shown me what the lab looks like when I was in high school, I would have went to college. And I would be probably a medical doctor right now. And it would still be a great career, but I'm not necessarily sure it would have been my passion. So, just trying to resow the seed, basically.
You are doing it so well. And shout outs to all the HBCU students who are going to see this and be inspired by your journeys. That is incredible. I know Aggies go so hard. I went to Bennett, so I can just hear them screaming Aggie pride when they watch this.
Yeah. I think I'm speaking on like a virtual seminar for like Mahari next week or in the next 2 weeks or something. But yeah, I mean, I didn't go to an HBCU personally, but I'm all for it. Like,
yes, that is incredible. What call to action do you have for people during this national moment of uncertainty due to this health crisis?
I think I already said it. Empathy, right? Particularly, there's a couple of calls to action. Let's start with the empathy piece because, a lot of what I heard when I was telling people you should stay at home, and this was around we had 100 cases in the U.S. and it didn't seem like it was going to be a big deal to the population, although we knew that it was probably going to be a big deal. And I was like, stay at home and don't have your kids around your grandma and blah 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 blah. And people were like, oh no, I'm still going I'm going to catch these cheap flights and blah blah blah. Because I like young people are not even really getting sick like that. It's not about you, okay? Everything is not about you. Let's just set the record straight about that. Some of the things, a lot of the things, actually, many of the things that you do in life should have some level of concern about somebody else. Even if it's just that you have to pick one person and only be concerned with that one person, just at some point, just be concerned with everyone else. I would hope that everybody would have concern for just the world. I think that it would make the entire world a better place. But so that's my first thing, empathy, right? If you have an elderly neighbor, text or what a call, make sure she or he has everything that they need. Just keep a little bit of heart in your movements, I think is important right now. And to be real, what we're seeing right now is really the beginning of what I would consider to be devastation that could come if the curve doesn't flatten soon. And so it's going to take everybody's heart to refuel this world, particularly this country, especially our communities. And then the second thing is, so I am an employee of the National Institutes of Health, which is a federal agency. So my agency is funded via tax dollars. My director is chosen by each administration, and he's been the director for a long time. So across administrations, I obviously was, a few weeks back sitting at the same table as President Trump and speaking to him about our research. One of the things that has come out of this moment is that my community does not trust our government to the extent. I think maybe I was blinded by it because I sit in a seat, to be frank, of privilege. I can keep that real. And so it's disheartening because, I'm having people say, oh, well, they chose her so that they can get us to believe that the vaccine is good, and then they were just gonna poison us or something. I want people to kind of just step back for a little bit and for just 1 second or a couple of seconds, just think what if nobody is out to hurt me? Actually, what if this girl woman actually really has been working on this for 5 years, actually had the vaccine designed to SARS and MERS that are akin and very similar, it's particularly in the part of the virus that we work on, to the new virus. What if those mutations could actually be transplanted from one into the other to create a vaccine antigen, which is exactly what we did. It's called a plug and play method, as I described in the New York Times. And then what if we already had the collaborations with Moderna and all of our academic partners, which we did because we had the forethought about what type of platform would be able to be mobilized and manufactured quickly in a pandemic response. And what if all of these things come together for good, because that's God's plan. I am not, being put in front of anybody to like convince you that vaccines are good or whatever, right? I actually am, while I advocate for vaccines, obviously because it's for public health good, I'm a proponent of people making their own adult choices. Mm-hmm. So do what you feel. If the vaccine comes to market and you want it, take it. If not, don't. But understand that from where I sit, nobody, as far as I can tell, even our president, at least in the moment of me interacting with him, was extremely gracious for the response that the NIH is taking in this vaccine bit and all the other things, therapeutics, et cetera, that are coming out of the National Institutes of Health. I think that we are all, this is new to everybody. I think that we're all learning. But at some point, we're going to have to put a little bit of faith into it. And that's just it.
You are doing the work that matters. And I just have to say that because I share a very similar hope that you just expressed. Because, a lot of us are living from a place of fear right now because of the uncertainty. But I hope in people being able to see you and hear from you that you bring a sense of ease to people during this time when we're leaning on so many things for information and really trying to figure out what in the world is going on. It's tough. But, I have to thank you for your work. And lastly, I have to ask, what impact do you want to have on the world? You are already having a great impact on us right now, right? But what do you want your legacy to be?
If I could have one vaccine come from design concept all the way through to an arm for in the general population, really protecting the entire world from whatever virus it may be. I'm an expert in coronaviruses, so likely coronaviruses or some other respiratory virus. That would be the type of legacy that I would want to leave behind. I joke that like curing the common cold, it's a very lofty goal.
Right.
But that would be the kind of legacy that, frankly would be good, I think, and the type of legacy that I want to leave behind. And just making sure that I have not just a stamp from a scientific, the nitty gritty, like, maybe I will be like one of the world's viral immunology experts in coronaviruses, whatever, right? But having a stamp on what it means to do this and look like this and act like this and changing people's understanding of what a scientist looks like, what it's even down to like a nerd in high school, like what that looks like and what the presence is. I actually think could transcend very far overall and change the way that we think about STEM in early, elementary, middle school development.
I am just so very proud of you. To be sitting across from someone who looks like me, who is doing the work and, has a significant role on this planet, it makes me so very proud. You said you're living in this moment and it feels surreal. I see you. the world sees you. And I don't know how much more affirming it could possibly be, to have someone like you in your role during this time. I hope that the world sees you, right? And then through seeing you, has a different understanding of the times that we are in. Dr. Corbett, you are incredible, and thank you for the work that you are doing.
Thank you.
You
I
are
actually
welcome.
want to make one little small point in something that you said, in that I think that it's important for everybody to remember that even though I have like this quote unquote role, anybody from your place, from your seat, if you figure out what your purpose is, the execution is so easy after that. And I think that's just what's happening right now, essentially. But yeah, thank you for inviting me to this interview. I've been on a low key been on a little bit of a press tour, so sometimes the questions can become mundane, and this has been so refreshing on a Friday for me. So I am so thankful.
You are so welcome.
To talk to you. And for anybody who is listening, or watching rather, I'm happy to take questions. I've been trying to answer every single question that comes my way online. So just hit me up.
Right.
Keep your empathy. Pray about it. And we gonna be all right.
In the words of Kendrick Lamar. Yes. Oh my goodness. I am truly so proud of you. Like, never in this lifetime that I think that, even though it's possible, right, that we'd have our own hidden figures, right?
Yeah.
And for you to not be in hiding is just mind blowing.
And you honestly can credit my boss and our institute director, Dr. Tony Fauci. They're like, okay, so like you've been doing the work, go and tell them. Like,
yeah.
I think nobody has an agenda to have my face, or anyone's face for that matter, hidden around this entire matter, because it's clear, right, that the way that the best science moves forward is with a team and multiple people doing multiple things. And so everybody should have their piece of the shine, I think, and it's the only way that it's going to be translated across multiple communities and multiple generations, etc.